And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we are talking about the franchise tag and NFL draft prospects. We're going to be looking at a draft prospect that I definitely think the Washington Commanders should take a chance on. We're also going to be looking at the franchise tag and how some of these franchise tags are going to really play into maybe what the Washington Commanders want to do here this offseason. So let's start with the latest with the franchise tag. And this comes around Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver here, T. Higgins. And so it looks like that T. Higgins has been tagged by the Cincinnati Bengals. Looks like a $26.2 million of the franchise tag salary here. And so what does this mean? And so you see that the stat to know with T. Higgins is that he's played in just 12 games in back-to-back seasons because of these various injuries. This is something that maybe plays a concern into his next deal. But when T. Higgins is on the field, T. Higgins has been pretty elite because you look at his numbers. Look, even last year playing 12 games, he had 73 receptions. He had 109 targets, but more importantly, he had 911 yards. And he also averaged 12.5 and then 10 touchdowns on the year. And so, look, T. Higgins can certainly be a productive wide receiver, and he has been one that has been linked to the Washington Commanders. And so when you look at the franchise tag and really what this means, well, if it's an exclusive franchise tag, then we're talking about, this means that a player is really not allowed to negotiate with other teams. If it's an exclusive one, they cannot also sign with another team, and should they reject the offer from their team that tags them. And then there's the non-exclusive tag, which essentially what that is saying, that is if the team chooses not to match or to receive draft compensation that's equivalent to 2 first-round draft picks from the signing team. And so you have that option to go out and either match, or you can get the 2 first-round picks, or you get the transition tag, which essentially means this, the contract must be no less than the average of the top 10 salaries of the player's position. There is no guaranteed compensation, and also players out to negotiate with other teams with the transition tag. And so, I'm not sure which tag it is, that he has gotten. But I will say this, that, this links to the Washington Commanders and really what they're trying to do as far as building their team and just really building more upon the wide receiver game. Because I think that even with the addition of Deebo Samuel, who I think is going to be outstanding for the Washington Commanders with what he can do from just being dynamic over the field, the screen game, just the options that you have with possibly lining him up in the backfield from time to time, running back options with him and things like that. But you do need, I think, another player that can stretch the field. I think T. Higgins is a guy that does that. And even if T. Higgins were a free agent, I think that maybe there's a chance that the market could maybe price the Washington Commanders out of him, because even though the Washington Commanders have the money, I don't think that they're necessarily going to be that aggressive where they would spend too much money and not address other things with this football team. Maybe the pass ownership would do something like that, but this one doesn't strike me like that. And with Adam Peters, look, he's shown us that he will be aggressive, but it also makes sense for the long term for this team. And so I think with T. Higgins, this franchise tag, maybe in a lot of ways it helps the Washington Commanders maybe focus their effort in other things that they can do, either via trade or more than likely free agency, because we'll see what happens. If a player is released, I think that there's still, there's going to be that market. And also, too, there is still a real opportunity that the Washington Commanders can get even better in the NFL draft with a wide receiver. And so next up, another player that, I think that this is kind of going to impact just the direction the Washington Commanders really go in. And that is really what goes on with Oso Odighizuwa. All right. And so defensive tackle here for the Dallas Cowboys. It looks like that, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, he is saying that if the Cowboys do not reach a long-term deal by Tuesday, which I believe that is the deadline at 4, then they are saying that they would more than likely tag him at $25.1 million. And so, that is another player that maybe could have been headed to Washington had he not been tagged. I could see that there could be a real connection, considering that Coach Dan Quinn coached him up. And listen, Defense is something that the Washington Commanders absolutely need to address in his 4 seasons. Look, Odigizua has been, I think, pretty good because he's averaged, or he's got 13.5 sacks on the year. But more importantly, he's been a disruptor inside. And I think that if he's tagged, then that means that the Washington Commanders are going to likely have to go in a different direction, which leads me to my next point in talking about NFL draft prospects. With this news, I just said that the Washington Commanders could definitely focus and get a wide receiver. But if we're looking defense, which I have not done anything as far as looking at a prospect here in a while, then I think that there's a real possibility that maybe they go in this direction. This is something that I did see. I think it was on NFL.com here. Actually, it was. And I think that, this player definitely intrigues me for sure. And I think that this is something that maybe makes a lot of sense, especially when you go look at his draft tape and his performance as well at the combine, which was very good. And so this is Nick Shock that writes this, or Shook, excuse me, that writes this. And essentially, he's saying that maybe a good fit for the Washington Commanders would be Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. And so he's listed the Washington Commanders, the Carolina Panthers, and the Kansas City Chiefs as as teams that would be a good fit for him, talking about how well he did in the draft process, talking about the NFL draft combine, how he looked as far as the workout is concerned. But, man, when I look at his tape, man, he certainly looks like he could definitely help the Washington Commanders as far as being just an absolute run disruptor. Like, he looks like he's that type of guy that uses his power, has a lot of speed off the line of scrimmage too as well. I think he plays his gaps too. And I think that, look, he could definitely be a player maybe the Washington Commanders should absolutely take a chance on. In fact, when you look at his draft profile, they have him linked to a player like Aleem McNeil, who plays for the Detroit Lions. He was an alternate here in the 2025 Pro Bowl. And so looking at his tape, you see just how disruptive he was for the Detroit Lions. And so, look, this is a guy that I'm saying, look, if the Washington Commanders have a chance to get him, depending on when, he's available in the draft and where we're at, I think for sure the Washington Commanders should absolutely take a chance with him. When you look at some of his, weaknesses, and again, you got to take this with a grain of salt because every player is going to have something that they need to work on, but you're always happy once you get them into your building, you feel like they can get to the next level. The weaknesses that they say is, look, at times, he lets blockers kind of get on him because he's got shorter arms, but he's still a very powerful player. And they're wondering, can he hold up against double teams as far as holding his position there? And then they were talking again just about the lack of length there and just kind of the lateral side to side quickness. But still, I definitely think that this is a player that I would like the Washington Commanders to take a chance on. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think here about this most recent news around the franchise tag. Do you feel like, yes, this is actually a good news for the Washington Commanders that T. Higgins has been franchise tagged, and then also to the expected franchise tag with Oso Odigizua as well. And what about this draft prospect with Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State? Like I said, go look at his tape. Looks like he could definitely be a steal in the draft for the Washington Commanders, especially on the interior defensive line, which we need. So let me know in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as we always say, go Commanders. I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.